Hello everyone and welcome to Jones Hardware and Games. I'm your host Jones, and today we'll build and test the dual Pentium 3 500 featured on our last video. Oh, this project, I almost gave up. I spent a week or more trying to get this build to work, only to find out that all the troubleshooting I was doing, it was not working for several reasons. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. This project was supposed to be a dual Pentium 3 500, a Voodoo 5 5500, an SSD, and a Sound Blaster Pro. Then after building the machine with all the care I could, nothing would work. PCI devices refused to work, sometimes one device worked but not the other, switching slots made no difference at all, blue screens left and right. Well, at least I can show that this machine can game.
A few moments later.
Oh, it's back. No, it's dead. Storage errors before booting, no USB at all, on board or dedicated, no ISA at all. Whew, the list goes on and on. So after a lot of troubleshooting, I found the culprits. Problem number 1, the SSD. I still don't know if it was the SSD, the adapter, the motherboard, or the combination of all of those factors together that gave me trouble. But I noticed that switching to the SD to IDE adapter cleared a lot of the issues I was having to boot, and some of the blue screens. Problem 2, PCI devices. This one was a catch, and I discovered by accident. In this motherboard BIOS, you can select if the OS has MPS 1.4 support or if it doesn't. What's MPS 1.4? Glad you asked. Reading from Wikipedia, the multiprocessor specification MPS for the x86 architecture is an open standard describing enhancements to both operating systems and firmware, which allow them to work with x86 compatible processors in a multiprocessor configuration. Version 1.1 of the specification was released on April 11 of 1994. Version 1.4 of the specification was released on July 1st, 1995, which added extended configuration tables to improve support for multiple PCI bus configurations and improve expandability. So yeah, enable this thing that comes disabled by default, and now all my PCI problems were gone. Problem number 3, ISA devices. I could not get this to work. It seems that this motherboard is picky in regards to ISA devices, and both sound cards I have don't show anywhere when plugged in. Even when following all the instructions in the manual how to assign the IRQ to the cards, etc., no deal. I ended up using a Sound Blaster Live 5.1 I had laying around, and it worked like a charm. Problem 4, the Voodoo 5 5500. This is not a problem per se, but I felt like the GPU was bottlenecking the CPU sometimes, and since the test is all about the CPU performance, I decided to go with the most overpowered card I had for an AGP slot. So what's the final config of the build? The case came from a pre-build made in 1997 by Xenix, a Canadian computer manufacturer that is no longer between us. A gig of RAM composed by 4 256 meg sticks of 100 MHz SD RAM, 32 gigs of SD storage using the SD to IDE adapter, an NVIDIA FX 5600 Ultra 128 megs as a GPU, the Sound Blaster Live 5.1 as a sound card, a network card I just find lying around, the generic one, a DVD-RW as the optical drive, since I didn't have USB to transfer files until I found out about the MPS thing, and of course 2 Pentium 3 500 MHz. With the computer finally working perfectly, I could move on with the tests. Games and methodology. So I tested 3 games and 3 modes. The games are Unreal Tournament, Quake 2, and Quake 3. The modes are single CPU, dual CPU, and the third mode is Affinity. I am calling the Affinity mode when you run a software but it forces it to run on a specific core. In our case, the games tested in Affinity mode will be locked to core 1, which means the second CPU. All tests were performed with the lowest quality possible, since I was trying to exacerbate the CPU bottleneck on purpose. So lowest detail on 6040 by 480 on all 3 games. I ran the benchmark 3 or more times for each mode and game, and took the average of the average FPS of all runs for each mode and game. The results? They were not jaw-dropping, but I was surprised. I was sure that the performance with 2 cores would be the same or worse because of the overhead caused by having 2 CPUs sharing memory, or that the threads jumping from one CPU to the other would cause stutters, like I just stutter. But as we can see in the graphic, we get a small bump in performance in all games running in regular dual-core mode and Affinity mode, with the exception being Unreal Tournament that likes dual-core more than Affinity. The increase in performance is not great, and will not justify the cost back then. That will be $1,400 just for the CPUs. That's $2.2 kilo in 2020, but is measurable and repeatable. I'm glad something came out of this project after all. Quake 2 got 4 FPS more using 2 cores. Quake 3 doesn't seem to care, but it still gives us 1 FPS more in dual core. And Unreal Tournament gave us 4 FPS more using 2 CPUs, which percentually is more than Quake 2 since the average FPS is way lower. For fun, I tried YouTube on this machine, and it kinda worked. 4040p works well. Can you dual core in 1999? Everything starts with this Asus motherboard, the P2B-D, manufactured around 1998. I bought it last year while visiting FreeGeek before going to LTX. 240p stutter but works. And here we go. Wow. 360p is a no. The sound just lags a lot and the video transforms into PowerPoint. I still had things in mind for this machine. Overclock is the first, but I have other projects to attend to, so this is the end of the video. Please let me know in the comments what would you like to see running on this machine. I feel like playing with a cordial quad now. Thank you very much for watching. If you're watching this, that means you watched the whole video and also that you are an absolute legend. If you like this video and want to see more content, please give this video a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and check my other videos. My goal is to post a video every week, but I work full time, so this might not be possible depending on the complexity of the project at hand. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.